Welcome to another episode of A Bad Idea for Podcast. Today you saw this lady on my right or in my left, depends on where you're seeing it. She is Marianne Pahkala. She's from Finland. She's a really talented coach, but I need to do a really proper introduction, a bad idea of a podcast way. Okay, so here we are. It's time to introduce a woman of many talents, former rugby player, European American football champion with runs. She got the resume of a megastar out of the University of Nebraska. She is Marianne Pahkala.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
All good, all good. I'm really honored to have you on the podcast. As I told you, you have a really impressive resume. You have a resume of a megastar because you've been around with the Detroit Lions, the Washington Commanders, the NFL IPP, well, the University of Rice, the University of Georgia, of course, the University of Nebraska, and now recently with the Vienna Vikings from the European League of Football, and with the American football team from France and the American team from Finland. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I've got into a lot of stuff now that you put it like that.
And I want to know, Coach, how do you start in the American football? What was your inspiration?
How did I get started? That was years and years back. It started with youth football in a small town called Seinäjoki in Finland. That's where I fell in love with football. I was about 12, 13 years old. And it started from there, playing myself first, juniors and women's, and then later on getting into coaching. So just being around the sport, having that little experience of playing, I absolutely just fell in love with it.
And what was the part that you loved the most about the sport? Because probably I used to play American football and I love the contact. I love the intensity of the game. But I don't know what was the thing that you fell in love because you were so young at that time.
It wasn't the contact for me. I absolutely hated tackling or getting tackled. It was not the
Yeah.
contact for me. It was my favorite English word, actually, camaraderie.
Yeah.
So, that feeling of friendship and team around me. I think all over Europe and all over the world, football teams are very tight-knit families. And that's what I fell in love with, having that instant feeling of friends and family around me. That's
Yeah.
what it was. And that's what it still is for me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Of course it is. And now, I mentioned that you have experience with the Washington Commanders and, of course, the Detroit Lions in the NFL. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes. So I did small internships with both those places, about 6 months at a time. I was doing a lot of player engagement type of roles. So I would interact with the players, bring them to community events that we were doing on the youth football side. Not so much a coaching role per se, other than coaching the kids, but getting to interact with the players and their families. And it was really cool experience in both places. Getting to meet these mega stars, getting to meet the coaching staff, and that kind of put me on the path of I want to be doing that. I want to be the coach. I kind of absolutely hated not being there on the football aspect, but that's what I started driving towards. I was like, I don't want to do this community stuff. It's cool, but I want to coach these players, not just help them coach the other kids.
And for you, what was the most rewarding thing, like working and having like the experience with these NFL teams?
The most rewarding experience. Ooh, that's a bad one. Um, it was great seeing the fans and kids' excitement about meeting these players. They're big superstars, or meeting some of the coaches, how much they look up to those people. That was always really, really cool to see. You'd see a kid, and you could tell that from that point on, they want to play football. they want to get further in their career in football because of that person in front of them. That was always really, really cool to see. It was also really cool to see all the inner workings of the NFL, how much money and staff and thought is put behind everything. It makes watching NFL much more exciting for me, just knowing how much actually goes on behind the scenes during those games for those players to perform the way they do on Sundays.
Nice. And now, I mean, we mentioned that also recently you've been like watching on the sidelines of the Vienna Vikings from the European League of Football as a running back and a strength and conditioning coach. How was the experience that you get from the NFL, from college, and from the rugby and from international? How do you put it and you present it to the players here in the European League of Football?
It's actually very, very tough because I got all of my training, all of my work experience for this was from the US, where things are done very differently. The budgets are bigger, the athletes are a little bit different. They do that full time. So the expectations were extremely high for everything that I did, the rest of the staff did, the players did. Um, so coming to Europe, and it's a completely different setting where our guys have full-time jobs. Most of our coaching staff is only part-time doing this. It's a very, very different experience, but these guys want to win just as badly and perform just as well as the college and NFL guys. So finding that balance of what to do with them, how to coach them, how to approach them as human beings. I can't be as demanding as I am in the US. You gotta be a little bit friendlier. It's a very different
Mhm.
atmosphere here in Europe.
And do you think that your experience with these college teams and the NFL teams and the experience that you have abroad helped you to bring something different to this Vienna Vikings team? Because we saw this year that, I mean, they were the reigning champions, and at the beginning of the season, everyone says, if you want to become champion, you need to defeat Vienna, right? And I think that some of that mentality that you talk about, it's the thing that we saw during the whole season with the team.
Absolutely. And that's very much our head coach, Chris Kaleke. He's an American guy as well, American trained. So he has that very same mindset that I have, like, demanding excellence, um, but making it friendly for Europe. So he's been a great source of kind of leveling what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, because he thinks in a very same ways that I do. So working with him has been great because a lot of those components were already in place in Vienna. How much we are expecting out of the guys and how we want to do things perfectly. We always can't, but we always strive for it. And that comes from Coach Kaleke, and I'm just adding on to it with my experience.
And now that we speak about Vienna, you were familiar with the Austrian players because you were part of the France team that defeated Austria in 2018 and also Finland.
Yes.
How was that experience for you to be in a different team, in a different country, in a different culture, and then facing your own country and facing a team that, in the future will become your home?
Ooh, very, very tough. I've always known that Austria produces some of the greatest European football players, and I'm not saying this because I'm in Vienna at the moment, but the quality of coaching here, the type of athletes coming out of this country is just amazing. So it's been really cool to be here and see what type of guys they actually are. And then going into this fall, as soon as our ELF season ended, I started with the Finnish men's national team who
Mhm.
was about to face Austria. So I was able to bring some of I knew a lot about the guys, I knew a lot about the coaching staff. Um, into the play, but overall, the European Championship game between Finland and Austria was extremely emotional for me because I am Finnish to my core. I wanted Finland to win the European Championship,
But
but but those are my guys on the Austria team
yeah.
too. Like shaking their hands and congratulating them after the game was really emotional because I was truly happy for them for winning it.
And right now, I mean, you have a lot of experience here in Europe. And do you think that Europe can become the third best league in the world? I mean, you know the Americans and you know the Europeans. So what do you think that they can become the third best league in the world?
I hope so. I
Yeah,
hope so. I feel like we need a little bit help from the US side when it comes to marketing and finances of it.
yeah,
Europe doesn't like to invest as much into American football as the United States does. And, we got the NFL, we got college over there, we got that combination of XFL and USFL, which is very competitive, but I don't think they have the fan base yet that European teams have. So I feel like we are competing with that league in a sense. I just feel like we need to buy some buy-in from the NFL and these, the Frankfurt games,
yeah.
those games have helped a lot when it comes to that. But we need a little bit more, and we're right there because we do have the talent and we do have the fan bases. It's amazing to see in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, you have the, I mean, at least in Austria, you have the fan base, you have the talent, and you have a lot of people that want to have, they want to see more American football, like more professionally. What was the secret behind Austria and particularly with the Vienna Vikings to the success that they have like these past 2 years?
In creating their fan base,
The
or
creating the fan base and also like inside the gridiron.
it just this is a long-standing organization. It's been in operation for 40 years. The Vienna Vikings brand is very, very well known, and that quality of football played in Vienna in the Vikings team. And then when the ELF came around and the Vikings just separated into their own entity in the ELF, with the Austrian league still operating, juniors still operating, that helped us a lot because we already had talent we could pull from the Vikings organization into the ELF team, the
Mhm.
coaches, the facilities, and the fans. So that was a huge, huge thing for the Vikings to be successful because when these franchises just kind of have to pop out of nowhere, it's a lot harder for them because they don't have that history that
Yeah.
the Vikings fortunately have.
And for you as a coach, which was the team that was more difficult to face? Because you have a really tough challenge in week 2 against Berlin, here in Berlin. But for you as a coach, as a former player, what was the most difficult team to face during the season?
Ooh. It's Surge, Stuttgart Surge,
Yeah,
absolutely the game that we ended up losing. We had a lot of tough games, and we prepared week in, week out the exact same way. We put in equal amount of work for every single game we played, not underestimating anybody because we know it's football. It's you never know. The Raiders games were always tough because that's our frenemy. Um, the Berlin game, the first one, really showed us that, we gotta be working hard this season. But when it comes to Stuttgart Surge, you know, we had all the opportunities to win it. We had the bye week before it. We had done our homework, but so had they. So that was a very tough game to prepare for and to eventually lose.
yeah. And now I want to know something because speaking out of experience, because I remember back in the days when I play American football in Mexico, the strength and conditioning coaches were so intense all the time. They were like, "You need to do this. You need to do." I mean, but they were always like really intense. How can you describe yourself as a coach in 4 words and why?
In 4 words, ooh, I am friendly
Yeah,
and I am like fun to be around when it comes to being in the facility and just chilling. But when
yeah,
I'm on the field, I would say I am demanding and tough as well. I got two different personalities. If I'm working with a guy one on one, it's different. We can have a conversation while we're doing it. When we're in a team setting, the guys got all fired up when I was leading the warm ups, and I started screaming bloody murder at them. They're like, "Oh, coach is so hyped." They would get hype about it because that's the American way. Like
yeah,
it's just it's embedded in the strength and conditioning coaching culture that we have to be, the hype man,
Yeah.
bringing the energy. And I love that.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it like a couple years ago, the strength and conditioning coach from Northwestern becomes viral because he was always like jumping around and really hype on the sidelines. I mean, you see yourself like that, like during game days?
Luckily, I've been in the box. So all last season, I spent in the box as the offensive coach at the top, helping out our OC. Um, but next season, I think I'm gonna be on the sideline, and I will definitely be that person. I will have smelling salts ready. I will get the guys going. I will
Yeah.
be jumping around.
Nice. Now I mean, you have experience on like as a running back coach, and you said that you are helping the offensive coordinator during the game days. How do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
Ooh, that is always a tough question. Um, I do love Europe. I love being here, but my dream was always to be in the United States and work in the college setting.
Mhm.
So hopefully I build my resume here in Europe for a while and then end up going back to the United States, and work as a strength and conditioning coach or in a quality control role in a Division 2 or FCS university. That would be the goal, and I'm using Europe as a building block to get towards that.
Going back to Lincoln, probably.
I would love to. That would be one of my dreams, but I'd pretty much take anything. But I did love my time at Nebraska.
Yeah. Coach, now, for you, uh, what was the most difficult part as a woman to start and to work in a environment that traditionally has been like dominated by men?
Gaining their respect.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about players, I'm mostly talking about other coaches
Yeah.
because they feel like their space is being crouched by
Mhm.
women. It's weird because, they have to kind of change the way they speak or act around each other, which I never want that. I tell the dirtiest jokes at times too, so I don't need that. But I feel like male coaches have often, especially in the US, they feel like we don't belong. It's easier to get the respect of the players.
Yeah.
You just have to show that you know what you're doing, and they'll follow you around. But it is tough because most places I've gone to in my career, like Nebraska or Rice,
Mhm.
I was the first female coach on the staff, and they had never experienced it before. So now I'm doing proactive work, doing a lot of youth camps and youth activations in Finland, hoping to do some here in Vienna, where we can teach for kids from a young age that their coach can also be a female, so they're used to it. Because I know it can come as a shock, like in a room full of testosterone, you're all 20 years old, and then a female coach walks in. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. If you've never seen it, you're gonna be kind of, what is this about?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what will be your advice for other women and other girls that want to get involved in American football, in sports, and like in the sports industry in general?
Ooh, you gotta work extremely hard. You gotta be tough. You cannot go in being too sensitive, and because you will get direct feedback, and that is okay. But you cannot be too sensitive. You just have to take it and grow from it. Um, and just keep your nose clean. Do everything right. Do everything in an ethical way, all throughout. That's my biggest advice. But it does take a lot of hard work. Luckily, there's a lot of doors opening for women. They're kind of getting pushed at the moment, which is great. But you still have to know your stuff. You can't get in just because you're a female. You have to be let in because you are the best out of the candidates.
Yeah. Coach, so we have two more questions left. Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
the second to last is, what was the best advice someone gave to you and that you can share to us?
Ooh, this is actually the motto um, that I learned while I was at the Detroit Lions. My boss used to say this all the time, and it was, it's never about the role, always about the goal. And
Nice.
it literally means we are all there to do the same job, win a championship. So whatever you got to do for it, you will. Our head coach here is one of the first people to start picking up cones. You know, it's not about his role, it's about our common goal of getting where we need to be. So you just pitch in, do whatever you can.
Nice. I like that. I like it really much. Finally, Coach, you know the podcast name is a bad idea for podcast. So now it's time for you, with the last 2 minutes, to share probably a bad idea that that in the end turns out to be a good idea.
Okay. This is something that people always told me was a bad idea that I kind of questioned myself for in the beginning of my career, because you just laid out some of my resume in the beginning, and I have worked in every role imaginable within football. I've done team operations, I've done football side coaching, I've done strength and conditioning coaching, I've done youth and community work, whatever you name it, I've probably done it. And people have often told me that that's a terrible idea. You need to pick a lane and stick to it. If you want to do team operations, just keep doing team operations. Don't do any other internships. Don't take any other jobs. Just stick with what you want to do. I never really knew what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be in football, trying to find my path. So I said, screw it. I've taken every single opportunity ever given to me, no matter what the role has exactly been. You know, team operations, I'll go for it. Right now, it was here in Indiana, it was position coaching. I'll go for it and I'll do it. And in that way, I have been able to make some of my greatest memories, advance far in my career, meet amazing people along the way who will help me get to my next place. So it wasn't such a bad idea to do a little bit of everything instead
Yeah.
of focusing on just one thing. Um, I think that's one of the reasons, you know, I'm still striving in this industry, why I'm able to do this with Vienna, you know, being in two different roles. I couldn't do that if I would have just stick to one thing in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a good bad idea, to be honest. Coach, I really thank you for your time, for your kindness, for your personality, because as you describe yourself, you're funny, you're really along to be with, and also you're really intense, because that's how American people are, right? So
Yeah.
I really thank you for your time, for your kindness. Hope to see you around.
Thank you so much.
Okay, see you around, Coach.
See ya.